What is going on, you two? Welcome back to Fireside Rangers. I'm your host, Eric Wilson. Today, joined by my co-host, Anthony Rivardo. Right away, before we even get into the topic of today's episode, just want to announce once again, for those who missed it, on our community page this Friday, July 26th, we will be doing our 2,000 subscriber special live stream where we will be having you guys, the fans, hopping on the stream with us to talk about the Rangers. We'll have some games lined up, some pretty cool things there. So it'll probably be around evening time, around a little past 5 o'clock Eastern time. So if you want to be a part of that, make sure you clear your schedule this upcoming Friday once again. But hope to see you guys there. As for now, let's get into today's topic. Today, we're going to be talking about the salary cap. Off season, it's pretty dead right now. Not a lot to discuss at the moment, but we're here to just take a little bit of a look into the future, talk about some of the contracts we currently have, some of the ones we might be getting rid of, and some new ones that might be signed next season. So we're going to get right into that. But before we do, make sure you guys like, subscribe, ring that bell so you don't miss notification, leave your thoughts down in the comment section below. And lastly, be sure to follow us on all of our social media platforms at Fireside Rangers. But before we really get into it, Anthony, my friend, you're just one room over. How are you doing?
I am doing great, and I'm really looking forward to Friday's 2K subscriber special. We hit 2,000 subscribers a few weeks ago, and we've been kind of planning what this is going to look like, and we're really excited to present it to the viewers of this channel, and also to just say thank you once again for getting us over to 2,000 subscribers. But as the Rangers kind of push through the slow portion of this offseason, and we push through with them, not a whole lot is going to happen between now and the start of the regular season. Maybe the Rangers get a deal done with Lindgren. Maybe they do something else. Probably not much else can get done, though. Like the Trevor Zegras potential trade rumors, I don't really see any of that shit taking fruition up until the deadline, which is kind of going to be a big part of this conversation. When you're talking about this Rangers salary cap situation, it looks fine right now, but it's going to look better at the salary cap deadline, or at the trade deadline, rather. I was reading on Twitter the other day, Vince Mercoliano kind of saying that the Rangers should get more salary cap space at the deadline. The contracts kind of move around in some way that should give them extra salary cap space once the deadline arrives. So the Rangers, if they're going to make a move, it's going to be then. But if you're looking at the salary cap situation right now, wondering what it could be, it's actually a pretty healthy situation for the Rangers. And I do think that Chris Drury, while he was patient and he didn't make any of those splash blockbuster moves during the offseason, he did a good job of keeping the salary cap space into a very good situation that sets the Rangers up for a hopefully successful deadline and successful 2025 offseason.
And I will say, we were a little critical of Drury and his offseason planning when it was all going down. The free agency market opened up on July 1st. We watched every other team in the league making these major moves, and all we did was sign Sam Carrick, and then later in the day we traded for Riley Smith. So upon first glance, I'll admit it was a little underwhelming, but now that things have settled down, like we've had a look at the roster and been able to think about it and analyze what we're going to do, I kind of like the move because Drury really didn't have that much money to work with. Had Trouba been traded and we had an extra $8 million to work with, boom, fine. That's when you go out and you land your big fish. But obviously a Trouba trade probably will still happen either at the deadline this year or next offseason. We had to re-sign a couple guys. We're still waiting to re-sign Ryan Lindgren, which according to Vince Mercogliano could look anywhere between 3.5 and 4 million. So once that contract gets put in, Rangers are really only looking at just over $1 million left right now. But as you mentioned, once the trade deadline comes around, we're going to have a little bit more wiggle room there. And, that's when we're going to be able to move these large contracts. If a Jacob Trouba trade is going to happen this season, expect it to happen at the trade deadline. So that's why when you kind of look at the Rangers salary cap, obviously rest in peace to Cap Friendly, but we got a couple other sites that we can look at now. It doesn't look too good right now, but things are going to change. It'd be pretty nice if at the trade deadline, when we're 3/4 of the way through the season and not even before it started, that's when we're going to realize what needs to be fixed. Who knows? Maybe Riley Smith is going to come in, fix that first line, and all of a sudden that first line right winger, we don't need to go out and land that big fish anymore. Maybe there'll be an injury or something, and that's where we're going to have to allocate most of the money to. So as far as Drury's planning goes, how the offseason went, I do like the idea of waiting for the deadline. We're still the team that won the President's Trophy last year. Nothing insane needed to happen this summer. Wait until we're deep into the season, figure out what your needs are, where you need to improve, whether it be forward, defenseman, who knows, even goalie. Maybe Jonathan Quick just has a terrible second season with us and we need a new backup. But I do like it. So I think as far as this season goes, ignore the numbers and just trust the process. Our salary cap situation is fine, but where things do start to get a little bit precarious is what happens after this season when Alexi Lafreniere is going to need a paycheck. Igor Shesterkin's going to need a paycheck. Keandre Miller's going to need a paycheck. So I do want to quickly talk about the negative aspect of this, though, because looking at the contracts that are being projected in front of us, Igor Shesterkin's looking for like 14% of the salary cap, which, assuming the salary cap rises another $5 million after this upcoming season, like it did this past season, Igor's going to be worth around $12.9 million AAV, which would make him like the highest paid goalie of all time, highest paid player on the Rangers currently, beating out Artemi Panarin. That one, there's really not a lot of wiggle room there. Igor deserves it. We're probably going to hand it to him, even though it might not be the smartest decision. But at that point, you got to do it. You're not going to be able to make that happen without moving one of your larger contracts, whether it is Jacob Trouba or anyone else that has a non-team friendly contract. But the good thing about the Rangers is they do have a couple of great contracts. Chris Kreider, Vincent Trocheck. I know you think Trocheck's contract might be the biggest bargain in the entire NHL. So we have some good contracts to work with as well. Alexi Lafreniere, I can see that going one of two ways. Either you lock him up long term, but you're also going to have to pay him like $8 million a year, a solid 8x8, or you keep doing what we've been doing, short-term contract for Lafreniere, maybe only 2 or 3 years, and then maybe, just maybe, you can keep it under $6 million. Not the most ideal situation, but given the cap situation, really not much you can do about that. So the way that I look at the salary cap is right now, this upcoming season, we're A-okay. It's what happens after this season where there might be some big changes coming unless these players want to take a massive pay cut. But I'm not sure how you feel about the future and what that might hold.
Honestly, I do feel good about the future of the Rangers salary cap. I think that they have a healthy cap situation right now because of some of the good contracts that they do have signed. Like, I think the Vincent Trocheck contract, like you said, is one of the best in the NHL. He's making under $6 million AAV. I think it's around 5.625. So you look at that value and the fact that the Rangers have him locked in for 5 years going forward because they signed him to that long 7-year contract. That was an absolute steal. Vincent Trocheck is worth much more than the 5.65 or whatever he's making. I think when you're talking about on-ice production and also leadership capabilities, just everything that he brings to the table and the way that he's been a rock in the top 6 for the Rangers, he's become the biggest bargain that the Rangers have on their salary. And I think that having that contract for such a long term is tremendous value for this team and is going to give them a lot of flexibility because they're going to have a staple in their top 6 for the next several years that they don't have to worry about, right? And at the worst case, let's say he does start to regress and his play declines, in the bottom 6, he's still going to be there and he's still going to be one of your best players, just playing in a more diminished role. So that contract just gives the Rangers so much flexibility and opens up money for the future. Because if he was signed to an $8 million contract and it expired 2 years from now, well, then you're not talking about re-signing Lindgren. You can't afford him. So it's that kind of difference that makes that contract so good and why you have to praise Drury for some of the moves that he's made. Now, of course, there are other contracts like the Trouba one we're desperate to move off of. And maybe we'll feel the same way about Zibanejad's contract next season if he doesn't play well, right? There are some other deals on this team that we might want to get off of in the near future. But having something like the Trocheck contract on the books is so valuable to this team. And that's why I think that when we look ahead to next offseason, they could play it one of two ways with players like Alexi Lafreniere. Are they going to sign him to a bridge deal or are they going to try and lock him in long term? Because maybe Lafreniere plays really well this season and he gets a big payday next year. But if you sign him to a 5-7-year deal next year, and then he has another great year, well, then you're saving money because if you sign them to that bridge deal 2 years from now, he'd be making even more money. So especially considering the inflation of the salary cap. So it's going to be tricky for Chris Drury to balance this properly because not everybody can go on a bridge deal and not everybody can go on a long-term deal. You do have to take a gamble. Put some guys on a bridge deal and hope that that's the right decision. Other guys on long-term deals hope that that's the right decision. It honestly takes a lot of luck for Chris Drury to get all of that right. But if he does his homework and he does it meticulously, he could probably find a way to create some more bargain contracts on this salary. And again, it's going to start next offseason. Right now, this Rangers offseason, pretty much done. We'll see what they do at the deadline. It's probably going to be rentals, probably just going to be improving the weaknesses on the team for the remainder of the regular season and postseason. But when you look ahead to that 2025 offseason, that's when it's crunch time. Crucial decisions for Chris Drury. But if he's careful about it and he signs the right deals, the right players to the right deals and moves off of that big Trouba contract and maybe one or two others that we're not crazy about, he can definitely keep the flexibility open for the upcoming 5 years ahead of the New York Rangers. And you do also have to keep in mind that that next 5 years is going to be crucial. A lot of these core stars that the Rangers have are going to be moving on within the next 5 years. They're getting up there in age, and maybe they're starting to decline. So you're going to be moving on for players like that, and then those young players like Lafreniere, potentially Kakko if he plays well this year, maybe Hedel, whoever you think is the future of this team. Of course, we have our prospects like Othman and Pro. Those guys, what contracts you sign them to in this next 5-year span while the core stars are leaving and these new guys are coming in, what those contracts look like is going to be so crucial, not only to the success of the New York Rangers in 2025 and 26 and 27, but even going as far back down as 28, 29, and 30 the next 6 years. So I do think that Chris Drury's done a good job being patient this offseason and setting himself up to where in 2025 he can set up this team not just to win now, but also to win later. And I think that is super important. And again, we've kind of ran into this debate a few times on this channel. Some of the fans and viewers in the audience, they disagree with me. They think, put all your chips to the middle of the table right now. You don't need to win later. Only win right now. Colin feels the same way. Every time he's on the show with me, we kind of debate about this. I disagree. I think that you do have to try to win now, and the Rangers are going to do that because they're going to be aggressive at the trade deadline and add some pieces. But that doesn't stop you from making deals in the future and signing players to good contracts in 2025 offseason. It's these off seasons where the team can set themselves up to have flexibility going forward and sign bargain deals like they did with Trocheck. That needs to be the formula, and you can only do that if you're planning ahead for the future, which I am grateful for the fact that Chris Drury is not putting all of his chips into the table and risking it all for 1 year, because it's not a guarantee. Even if you put it all on the table and you bet everything, you can still lose to the house. The house always wins. So I think that you do have to be careful like Drury is. And that's why I do appreciate the patient approach he's taken. Sure, I wish that we made a better splash and we did improve this team this offseason, knowing that we could get off to a hot start in the regular season. But midway through the year, we're still going to be a good team, still have those core stars, add those 1 to 2 pieces, try once again to make that deep playoff run.
Yeah, I fully agree with you, especially with the Lafreniere one. Like in a perfect world, we do sign him to that 8x8 deal, because with the salary cap going up and the inflation and, players' contracts just like naturally growing larger and larger and larger, to have Lafreniere locked up for a long time right now would be perfect. Right now, $8 million might sound like a lot for him, but 5 years into that contract, when he's in the prime of his career, $8 million is going to be nothing. Like everyone's going to be making that much money at that point, assuming the natural increase of the salary cap ceiling keeps going up $5 million a year, which at this rate, why wouldn't it? The only reason it stops going up in the past was because of COVID. So, knock on wood, we don't have another global pandemic. Chris Drury's plan should be working out. But I think that pretty much to summarize what we've been saying here is we're kind of in like the calm before the storm, in my opinion. Like this season, it might look bad, but it's actually like quite fine. And we'll be able to get whatever player we want at the deadline. We'll be able to move whoever. It's as soon as next season ends. So I know we're jumping the gun a little bit talking about next offseason when we're still in the middle of this one, but big things are coming, and it's important that the Rangers are prepared for it. So it's good to just keep an eye on who potentially might be making what, because focusing on the future is important, like you said, and you can't really do anything this upcoming season without also looking towards the future. So that about concludes our breakdown of the current Rangers salary cap situation. It's a little complicated at the time, but don't worry, there's nothing to worry about. Chris Drury has everything handled, and it seems like he's playing it right. So I'm curious to hear how you all watching feel about this at home. So if you agree with us, let us know down in the comment section below. If you disagree, we would also like to hear that. Maybe we can have a little debate. So please drop your thoughts down in the comment section below. If you guys did enjoy, please like, subscribe, ring that bell so you don't miss notification. And once again, be tuned this Friday evening to do our 2,000 subscriber live stream for you guys. Couldn't do it without you. So thank you once again, but most importantly, have a good one, and let's go Rangers.